Let me start off by saying good afternoon to everyone. And this evening, I have the pleasure of having stand with me today, the Mayor Pro Tem, Ellen Cohen, and Councilmember Edwards, Councilmember Robinson, and who do I have on? And Dennis Tomreski, who is the Director of Office of Emergency Management. And then Andy Aiken is the Chief Economic Development Officer for the City of Houston, along with some other department heads as well. This is a very important moment for the City of Houston. Don't have to tell anybody about Hurricane Harvey and the aftermath of the hurricane and the storm, but this is a defining moment for the city of Houston. Let me just quickly say that it's not enough for us just to rebuild in the same way, in the same place. If we do that, then we will miss the mark, and quite frankly, we will miss the opportunity that this storm has afforded us. We have to rebuild so that we will be better prepared and much more resilient for the future. And so this is one of those defining moments, and it's important not for us to miss it. There are a lot of moving parts on multiple levels, and a lot of things that are happening very quickly at different levels. And I think it is important as we move forward that from my vantage point and the vantage point of this city, that there be a singular person who has the singular responsibility of leading the recovery effort as we move forward. Today, I want to announce the appointment of former Shell Oil Company Chairman and President Marvin E. Odom to the new position of Chief Recovery Officer for Houston as the city bounces back from Hurricane Harvey floods. Marvin, who will serve without salary from the city, thank you, Marvin, has been a global leader in the oil and gas and power generation industries and has extensive experience in large-scale crisis management. He will coordinate our private and public sector efforts to rebuild Houston in the aftermath of Hurricane Harvey. And at the same time, he will advise to me on future steps that the city needs to take to better position itself for future storms. And he will be working very closely with Steve Costello, the Chief Resilient Officer, and will highlight needed mitigation measures and steps the city should take as we move forward. He will form a board as he deems necessary, Board of Advisors for the recovery effort. He will be interfacing directly with Commissioner Sharp, who you know the governor appointed to lead the recovery effort for the state. He will be interfacing directly with FEMA, with government leaders, civic leaders as well as necessary, department heads, on needed steps to rebuild the city of Houston. With all the resources we have in Houston for ingenuity, problem solving, and public sector partnership, it's a natural step for me to reach outside City Hall to a business leader eager to assist us with our recovery from unprecedented flooding. And Marvin Odom is the right person for the job in light of his accomplishments in dealing throughout the energy industry, with governments far and wide, with business adversities such as the huge hit that Hurricane Katrina put on the oil and gas sector, and with his extensive ties to many Houston individuals and groups. Marvin's effectiveness in managing challenging environments was clearly displayed in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. He personally guided the rebuild of Shell's extensive businesses and the BP Montano oil spill. Shell was the first company to be awarded permits from the federal government to restart exploration. And when leading a crisis management style global response, he enabled Shell's Alaskan Arctic exploration program. He has been a National Urban League board member since 2015, a World Business Council for Sustainable Development Executive Committee member since 2012, a Harvard University John F. Kennedy School of Government Dean's Council member since 2005, a Council on Foreign Relations member since 2014, and a University of Texas at Austin Cockrell School of Engineering Advisory Board member since 2008. There is no question that he is more than capable and able to lead this recovery effort with his extensive experience from being the CEO of Shell all the way down to the many other aspects of his life. The important thing, as he and I have talked, is about taking advantage of this moment to really transform our city for the better, to put us in a better position after the storm than we were before the storm, to highlight the needed mitigation methods, and not just have us to do the same thing that we did prior to the storm and end up facing the same sort of problems after another storm happens. One thing we do know, there will be another storm. That is very, very clear. The question will be whether or not we will take advantage of this moment to put us in a better position for the next storm that certainly will come. And I think unlike the past, this time we really need to focus on our recovery efforts. We really need to talk about what mitigation steps we must take, not should take, we must take. And I'm not looking for a report, okay? We have a whole lot of reports. What I'm asking Marvin to do is to push us forward, to be a part of the rebuilding process, to push us to do more at all levels, the public and private sector, to push us to make this city more resilient, more hardened, more prepared on a multiplicity of levels, and therefore to help push even the federal level and all of our partners to do more than what we have been willing to do in the past. The other day we talked about the coastal spine. That's a part of the mitigation efforts. Talking about projects to widen the bayous, get them better prepared. That's a part of the process. What we cannot do is ask home builders to rebuild their homes in the same space and we don't do anything else to protect them. That would be a waste. And so I wanted to find the best person who could do that. His experience in helping to Shell to rebuild after the Katrina, his management style, all ideally suited for this particular moment in time. So Marvin, thank you for being willing to serve. I will say when I did call him, he was getting ready to start another business venture, but for the city of Houston. And because I do want to acknowledge that he has agreed to put his own plans on hold to help us to move forward. And for that, I want to thank him in advance for being willing to serve on behalf of the entire city of Houston. Marvin Odom.
Well, I think the weight of the mayor's vision just hit home as I was listening to those words. I can tell you without doubt that it is it's really more of a privilege and an honor to be standing here than anything else. I mean, to be sitting on this type of opportunity for the city of Houston, for the people of Houston. That's my city. I was born here. I grew up here. That just feels like an enormous opportunity, which I look forward to taking advantage of. You know, I just have a couple of comments, and I'd be happy to take any questions if that suits the mayor. But I wanted to start with a comment to say thank you to the mayor and to the team and to the city council, because I think we can all look at what's happened so far and agree that the response has been extremely strong, very focused, and very effective. And I, as a citizen of the city, really, really appreciate that. Clearly exceptional times, which is, I think, why the mayor is looking to create this position and this sort of effort. And we'll look to bring in the additional capacity necessary to make the type of things that he described in his vision possible. A couple of things that I will tell you that are front of mind for me and that I think you can expect as you look at how we move forward. The first one of those is that we know how to learn. So we've had Katrina in the past, we've had Hurricane Sandy, tremendous number of learnings about how things work, what's effective and what's not. Our position is we're going to start from the very best of that and do even better than has been done before. The second message, I think, and thing you should look for in us is a recognition that speed counts. This is an urgent situation for a lot of people. Those immediate needs won't be forgotten. So that will be the overarching element that I think you'll see as we move through this effort. The other thing, and you heard it in the mayor's comments, is you should look to us for what I would call world-class coordination, something we were talking about just a minute ago. Think about the jurisdictional kind of spider web that we have here with city and county and state and federal. We have an incredibly strong business community here. We have, we're just blessed with a nonprofit community here that's extremely strong. There's funding coming from all of those areas. This coordination is going to be necessary to make sure we take advantage of that in a way that it gets to the right places at the right time for the maximum impact. A lot harder to do than it is to say, but I think that coordination is something that you should look to us for, and all of this geared towards building a better Houston than what we started with. So, Mayor, I'll just pause there, and would you like to take questions?
Any questions anyone may have?
Sir, you mentioned bringing in additional resources to accomplish some of the goals that were mentioned. What do you have in mind in terms of people or contractors or initiatives? So a bit of the answer is yes. So what additional resources does it look like we might need? I have a very strong perspective, having worked in big, complicated organizations before, that our first goal is to integrate into the existing organization as much as possible. So this afternoon I'll get a chance to talk to a lot of the department heads. The perspective I'll take is we'd like to integrate into that. We'd like to utilize that existing organization to get things done. Where we need to bring something else to supplement, whether it's additional people, contractors, consultants, whatever, then we'll look to do that to make sure we can stay on pace. Yes.
Areas you're going to be focused on, or like you're going to be focused on housing or flood mitigation, or certain things that are your top priorities?
Well, I was listening to the mayor's words pretty carefully, and I'm pretty sure that he captured that entire window, which I think is appropriate. And Mayor, don't let me you jump in here anywhere, but I'll just give you my perspective, which is it's very much the immediate needs that everybody's looking to have addressed and that will be addressed. So back to that speed point, I think there's an early on, but just maybe a half step past that, where we have a responsibility to make sure that we assess and quantify all of the broader needs across our community. And we need really high quality assessment of that, because what that will do is that will go into not only identifying what we need, but be a high enough quality to where it can be translated directly into funding requests, to where all those different connection points we mentioned are very clear on what Houston needs as a result of this. So that's a very specific piece of work, I think, but that crosses all of the boundaries or the topics that you mentioned. And the final thing I'll say here is I think we're in and I heard the mayor allude to it, we're in what I call a long-term window. And let me describe that. It's dealing with long-term issues, but the window is actually only open for a little bit of time. And we've got the focus of the nation. We have the focus of all of our officials at the state and other levels. Now is the time to identify what needs to be done on a longer-term basis and get those movements locked in, rather than addressing that on the back end of this process. So we'll look to move those in priority order, but somewhat in parallel as well.
What I will add is that over the next, let's say, couple of months, Congress will be considering their second measure, second tranche, as it relates to the storms, and that will probably take place in something like October, November. And in the interim, it's going to be important that we talk about certain mitigation projects that need to be included, because quite frankly, I'm certainly at some point in time, the council members and myself will be standing in front of groups, town halls, and people are going to ask, what's the next step? Do we simply rebuild? And if we rebuild here, tell us why things are going to be different. And normally mitigation takes place, it should take place before the disaster, not after the disaster. And so we need to make sure that we are pushing those mitigation projects that are shovel ready, that are ready to be funded. We need to try to get them included in those packages. Similar to what they did in Louisiana and after Sandy, Congress appropriated billions of dollars on mitigation projects. We need to be doing the same thing here. So those are some of the immediate steps. But over the long term, we just need to decide, how do we make this city more resilient? I'm glad to see Beth White here, because you can't talk about all of this, about expanding green space and parks and how we're going to utilize them. That's critically important. But when you start talking about, whether you're talking about housing, infrastructure, flood mitigation, community facilities, economic development, complete community, resiliency, all of those elements are a part of this bigger plan. And that's why I said at the beginning, there are a lot of moving parts, but I do think it is critically important that we have a singular focus, so to speak, and a person at the top leading this effort, so that people will know who to turn to and who's going to help move this along. And quite frankly, as the mayor of this city, I still have a number of things to continue to do. The city still has to run on a day-to-day basis. We still have to move forward. We still have to compete to get Amazon here. All of these other things we need to do, continue to do. But it is important, I think, for the city to have a person with the mindset, the skill set, the capability, crisis management, the bigger vision, dealing with complex organization, in order to be at the forefront to help harness and move us forward and to push us. Because what generally happens after a few months, people somewhat lose that focus, and we start thinking, okay, we're going to be okay. This time, we cannot fall back into that state of complacency. If we do, we lose. So we cannot. So I thought it best to ask Marvin to serve in this capacity, which is different than what we have done in the past. Okay? So the goal is not to continue to do the same thing, expecting the same result, and the end result. This is a step different. And now we have to continue to push to engage in mitigation projects and see some things happening. That's why I'm not interested in a report. What I have asked and charged him to do is you push the things forward that you need, working in conjunction with department heads and other partners. Let's make it happen. Okay. I'm not going to put a timeline on it. I'm hoping Marvin is saying, look, what I indicated to him, I'm not here to micromanage him. He does report directly to me, but I want to get the job done, and it's not going to happen overnight. So I can't give you a timeline. I'm just hoping and praying that he will be with us as long as it takes to move us exponentially forward.
Mayor, you mentioned not rebuilding in the same places. Does that mean that the city is going to make a bigger push for buying out people's homes?
Well, I think that's an element in the equation where there are certain cases where you may not want to do that. Let me put it this way: there are certain apartment complexes, for example, that are built in areas that we know will flood. Okay, because historically, right, it's 2 feet below, and we know they're going to flood. And these one apartment complex that comes to mind is occupied by low-income families. It doesn't make sense to keep rebuilding in the same space and then having to go through the same thing again. That doesn't make any sense. So it's now time, I think, to look at relocating those type of facilities. But where we can engage in mitigation measures that would make it less likely for those areas to flood, that then changes the equation. See, if you're not going to engage in the mitigation, then yes, it doesn't make sense to continue to do what you're doing. But if we are going to engage in effective mitigation measures that will lower the risk of flooding, that's a different equation. And I'll give you one example on the White Oak portion, down close to Antoine and Little York Victory. They widen that. They widen that channel, that White Oak and Vogel Creek. They widen it. Prior to them widening it, those homes were flooding over and over and over again. And then they engaged in a buyout. About 200 of those homeowners sold. Can't build anything there anymore. After that, they widened White Oak and Bogle Creek. The area doesn't flood. But the homes are gone. The mitigation occurred after the fact, not before. And if the mitigation had occurred before, there would have been no need for the people to sell their homes. If you're not going to engage in the mitigation measures, why stay? But if the public knows that we are serious about implementing the mitigation steps, they may be more inclined to stay. And what I'm asking Marvin to do is to help us get out of our comfort zone and put those things out there that we know can make a difference, and then to help to drive the public and the private sector to get it done.
Mayor, I just want to follow on that. I mean, part of the mitigation conversation is something that you discussed in creating the resiliency officer position, the flood czar position. You know, is this duplicative, or is this, saying there's urgency on this now, there's urgency on it when you took office as well? Do you feel like we've really done much on that front?
Right. And I think we have. And I think Steve has done an excellent job in moving that ball further down the field. But I think what we now have is that we need an overarching view. Not just focus on that piece, but the infrastructure covers the board. When it comes to housing and how we build, it's bigger than that. When it comes to all of these other mitigate parks, green space, you name it, all of these pieces into play. So we need that overarching view, and someone that can, all the rest of the different components play into that overall equation. Steve continues to serve a very vital role, and someone who I know Marvin can benefit from. All the department heads, Carol Hagnott from Public Works, you name it. And in what he's doing, Chief Economic Development Officer. Tom McCaslin, Housing and Community Development. Now what I'm asking is for this person to lead the recovery effort, which includes all aspects of our operation, not just one part. And I think that's where we failed in the past. We focus in one area, but these areas are interrelated. Okay? And quite frankly, and again, I keep referring to Beth, but parks and green space, they play a part in the whole drainage operation. Okay? And so does Public Works. And so does what Steve is doing in terms of flooding. So all of these parts come together. Housing and where you build. How we develop in this city is critically important. And quite frankly, you're going to need the business community to play a vital role. They have to be at the table. Realtors have to be at the table. Everybody has a role to play. But if we continue to operate in our different silos, we are going to miss the mark. And so this move today is my way of saying we're going to break through the silos. There are everybody's doing their thing, but now it has to play into the overall plan to make the city more resilient and more prepared for the next storm.
Mayor, the Texans are playing Cincinnati tonight. The mayor of Cincinnati declared today as Hurricane Helping Day. Have you spoken to him at all about any help they may be sending to Houston?
Well, the Texans beating Cincinnati could help. But no, look, one thing I can say is that mayors across the country have just been fantastic. Just like the mayor of Cincinnati. I was on a telephone conference call more than a week and a half ago with 77 other mayors. The mayors across the city have simply been helpful. They're sending supplies. They're sending their debris moving crews to Houston. I want to thank him. For their support. And as we move forward, where there are needs, we certainly look at to working with them. But at the same time, we are reaching out, and we'll be reaching out, for example, to the cities in Florida, offering help to them. and other areas that are impacted. Just because we still find ourselves in a moment of need doesn't mean we can't extend a helping hand to others who are facing situations worse than we are. Okay.
I don't know if it's too early to ask, but do you have in your mind any kind of criteria for how you're going to judge whether this effort is ultimately successful?
Well, I think we'll all be judged whether or not we put ourselves in a better position, let's say a year from now, than where we are today. If, for example, if we haven't done any more to make the city more resilient, to make us more prepared, then that if will be deserving of a failing score. I mean, I can't put it any blunt than that. I think Hurricane Harvey, the tropical storm, certainly serves to highlight that we are not where we need to be. I think that's crystal clear. But from those challenges, there are some opportunities. And sometimes things that we don't like will happen in order to shake us out of our comfort zone. And I think we've been in a comfort zone, and now we have been shaken out of our comfort zone. The question is, are we going to take advantage of this moment? Certainly, I didn't want to miss taking advantage of this moment. I'm just delighted that at this particular moment, Marvin was available to step in and said yes. So I can't thank him enough already for saying yes. I think he recognizes the magnitude of the job. I think he knows that. And I think he knows he's coming into something that really, in part, still has to be defined. And he's going to have to find his way through. But look, he's been the CEO of Shell. You know, they faced some major challenges in the past, and he's been highly successful. And what makes him so uniquely positioned for this position is his Houston connection, you know.
And if I can, Mayor, I got a free card to make the mayor really uncomfortable. So what more can I ask for?
And then, you know, so it's a special moment for the city. We need to take advantage. Like I said at the beginning, this is a defining moment for this city. And I think all of us are prepared to take full advantage. And I want us to take full advantage. I do believe that the recovery for the state of Texas from Hurricane Harvey will go through the city of Houston. And I think we are uniquely positioned to lead the way. And we should. And I think we have an obligation to do that. Okay, thank you all so very much. Look forward to working with you, Marvin. Thank you. Welcome aboard.